Welcome back to the CLSR, and I'm your host, the counselor. And now we're talking about part two of Oprah Winfrey's interview with Meghan and Harry. And see, I've covered some details in the first part, but I got to talk more in depth about what Harry and Meghan are going through. And see, Meghan, remember, first of all, you got to understand that this young lady has really been resilient in her life. She's always worked, she's hustled for hers, she's made her own way, and she's had her own voice, and for her to have her voice taken away, it was really devastating. And there are people that said, you know what, on the other side of the fence, they said, well, listen, you got to understand that you're going into the royal family, and that's going to happen. However, let's talk about what really happened. This young lady, she's a superstar in her own right. I mean, basically, if you really look at it, compared to the royals, she's considered a commoner. But she was in Hollywood. She did her movies. She made her own money. She had her own respect. She got together with Harry, but it wasn't like about money that she needed it. She already got her act together. She was doing a good thing for herself. She hooked up with Harry, and I know in her heart of hearts, she never expected any of this to happen on that level. She actually went in which a lot of relationships do. People in relationships, they get into partners, they get into relationships with open hearts and open minds, and they want to believe, and they should believe, that the world realizes that we're all human beings, regardless of the color of the skin or the race. But that's not really true in a lot of societal norms in certain countries. That's not really the truth. But the truth is, that's where she's coming from, and that's what she expects. And sometimes you don't know what's going to happen until you get in deep. And see, this young lady hooked up with Harry, and she's going around doing her, she's part of the firm, right? She's going around the world doing her due diligence, being responsible, representing the royal family. She's doing what is expected of her. She even has a good relationship with the queen. Now, some of the other relationships are quite questionable, but when you're married and you're in love, you're not seeing a lot of that. You're just dealing. So she got in deep, and from the interview, basically she was in deep, and it got to a point where a person who had a voice was not able to speak anymore. So that's like taking her voice away when she got into the royal family. And as much as people say you should expect it, it's really a mind blower. Blew her mind. And so I think what she was basically saying in the interview is that everything ceased from that moment on, when she felt that she couldn't go out where she wanted to go. Because you're married, you don't know until you get into it. Actually, I mean, nobody was teaching her, as she said, the royal ways. Now they might have said a few things, but until they put restrictions on you, you don't realize that this is real. So there are people who say a lot of things about that. But on the other hand, this woman's in it for love. Okay? She should have known. But who would think that the royal family would have you locked up to that point? And I think that surprised a lot of people. So what had happened, and see, there were some unanswered questions from that interview that I had, and we're going to have to talk about. Because from her experience, can't just talk about hers. We're going to talk about Harry's too, but let's talk about her. She is the one who seemed to be targeted. It's like, how heartbreaking is that? I mean, you go up there, and remember, her husband, right, they had the beautiful wedding, wonderful, and it was just fabulous. And her husband's brother had his wife with their kids, and see, it was time for them to have their kids. And from my understanding is, it seemed to be somewhat of a problem. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I was talking about it because when I heard the interview, there was something that caught my attention. When Meghan said that there was a time where she was quite disappointed in Kate. And the reason why she was in Kate is her husband's brother's wife. She had her kids, but she said, you know what, Kate, there was a report in the news, and see, the media was tough on them, period. But they were really tough on, they were saying some nasty things about Meghan. And see, what she felt like, she wasn't really protected. And I think if you're going to be in the royal family, that's the least you should be, is protected. But she said she was kind of discouraged when she found out that the media had reported that Meghan had made Kate cry during some ceremony that they had. Wasn't very specific. I don't know if it was a shower or a wedding or something, but that was the report. And the media ran with it. They just went all over. Now remember, the royal family has their comms, their communications, where they're allowed to communicate certain messages to the media. But it was all over the media that Meghan had made Kate cry, so they ran with it and they depicted her as a nasty, evil person. But when you find out from this interview that that wasn't really the case, okay, and it was actually the reverse, and Kate made her cry during this thing, you had to wonder why. Now, that is a big question, why? Now, we might never know why, and I'm going to tell you, I spoke with a partner of mine, and she's like defending Kate to the hill. She's like, well, you don't even understand. You're a man. You have no understanding of what's going on. Kate just had her baby 3 weeks before, so she was like hormonal, and she had, she was really going through it, so she gave it to Meghan. She gave her a piece of her mind. She was upset with her, whatever. She was just complaining about this, and it just got too much for Meghan. So, anyways, my partner said, oh, you know what? That was the reason why Kate went off on Meghan. And I say, okay, but listen, you know what, though? Okay, we're going to say that now. I'm going to tell you something right now. If I were to say that, being a man, if I said, you know what, she was just hormonal, there would be fireworks. I'd be thrown out the window. But the point is, you can't say that as a man. But that aside, we do want to come back and say, well, okay, so let's say that could be. And it's very realistic, quite possible. But then I would have to say, but then wait a minute. Meghan goes on to say that even though Kate apologized later, you know, and she was quite sincere, Meghan wasn't mad about that because she realized she's a good person. But what she didn't respect was the fact that Kate turned around and did not go to the media or say to the media, hey, look, it wasn't her that made me cry. It was quite the opposite. So the attacks need to stop. And she could have clarified that because remember, they weren't just targeting her for that. They were calling her all kinds of just nasty names, which the media can be quite like really devastating to people. The media has destroyed careers, but the media can come hardcore. And if you pay attention to the media so hard, it can get you. And even if you ain't paying attention, you know you're going to know somebody around that's going to be saying what the media is saying. So they were on Meghan. And so she couldn't understand why Kate, you know what I mean, did not come to her defense. Because I would say, well, if you're not in my defense, right, you're on the offense. You're going against me. And see, that's not cool. And see, that's why I'd say, oh, yeah, you're apologizing, but you're not setting the record straight. And I think that was very disappointing. And see, that got my attention too, because I'm like, yeah, you can apologize, but why aren't you setting the record straight? What's up with that? And see, that was disappointing because you would think that they were both around the same age, young women married with young husbands, and they would support each other. And Kate should support her, even though she's coming into a royal family. But apparently that didn't happen. And when you don't have that type of support, that could be quite, you might look like you're being supported or you're nice and friendly, but really, there's some devious relationships that go on. And a lot of people could, they could say, hey, there could be some jealousy there. Oh, no, there's no jealousy. But the truth is, there could be some there. If you're not defending, why not? You know it's wrong. You're sitting up there knowing, doggone well, that woman's going through some torment, some trauma, but you're not stopping it. And that's just one thing. We're obligated to stand. I'm not going to let somebody take the blame for my responsibility. That's natural. But the point is, we're not going heavy on that. That's just another thing. Now, with what Meghan also said was that she was going through some real mental turmoil and she wasn't getting the help and support that she needed, right? So thank goodness her husband stuck with her and they got together. Not unlike a lot of people out there who are going through their torment and their trauma and they need help. That could be like the system that we have out in place now. There are systems in place that aren't very helpful to a lot of people. There are some that are, but a lot of these institutions When it comes to mental health, we have a long ways to go. But, sometimes that could be barriers in itself. And this is how I correlate it to the royal family. They should know better because it's their family and they have access to all the resources, which is unlike us in society who, you have to stand in line, or you got to wait for these major appointments, or you got to do something very detrimental to get someone's attention. But that shouldn't be expected in the royal family. You got access to everybody, whether you're going to be embarrassed about it or not. You can't be having people in your royal family going through this torment and saying it's all right and it's okay, and you deal your own way. Okay, so that right there is quite disappointing. All right, that right there is saying, wait, there should be no way, especially knowing that she's coming into the family and she is different. She's different. She's different. She doesn't know the regular grind. She looks different too to them. So these are things that are expected. So basically, that royal family needs some cultural sensitivity, clearly. Okay, there's no excuses. But they also need to take care and protect. See, and this is another thing that got me a little bit quirky. I was like, it doesn't feel right. So what you're telling me is she came into the family, and then you're telling her that you having a baby, and you heard about those comments with the baby, heard about, oh, is that baby gonna be dark and that? And I know, listen, some of you are like that. Some of you are like that. And you know what? I don't want to play just a white and black thing, because you know what? In all different cultures that's being played out, it's true. Right? And I'm gonna give it to you real. Even in the black culture, there's different segments of black society. We're not all the same, even though we like to be portrayed as all the same. But even in black culture, sometimes, maybe in North America more than the homeland, Africa, or you know what I mean. But in North America, it's got its racism and bigotry and ignorance, even amongst black folks. Because there's some black folks that be, oh, look how light that baby is. And, there's some that go, look how dark that baby is. Or, like, you never get it perfectly right. Somebody's always got something to say. But if it's a white person saying it, it's a problem. But we do it to ourselves, right? Sometimes. You know what I mean? And it's not right. It's not justified. And we need to check that too. But we also need to check it on that end. But see, that's the problem in society, right? These hierarchies that we have, even amongst our own culture, we got to admit it. White folks do it too, right? Europeans, all of them, they have their little discrimination. Black folks, we having, like, the world has so. See, this was one of the big issues in the world, judgment. But when I found out that about Meghan, when they said that, that was quite disappointing too. But it is a reality that people, unfortunately, they subscribe to, right? Oh, what's that baby gonna look like? And then once you say that right there, you're going, oh my goodness, but it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't. It shouldn't matter what the baby looks like. But it does matter to certain people, and that's the truth. Some of you are sitting up there right now going, would that matter to you? Right? If you're a dark skinned family and you see a light baby in there, you got something to say. Don't lie. Some of you got something to say. And if you're white and you're Caucasian, you see a little brown baby, some of you divorced your partners because you didn't like it. Oh, you cheated on me. Meanwhile, could have came back from generations or something happened. The whole point is we're all focused on the wrong thing. And the sad thing is that it comes out the way it does. And the truth is we all got fingers to point, but we never point our fingers at ourselves. Are we buying into this garbage? Are we? And I'm going to tell you something right now. There's a lot of people out there who don't buy into it, and thank goodness for you. But the truth is, if you could just love, right, something other than yourself, we'll be better people. But that was quite disappointing. And also when I heard her say that they had to get away from that because it was getting to them mentally. What the media was attacking all the time, and the constant barraging, and the constant oppression and the crying, and the wife just going through, Meghan going through this, and her husband's going through it. And remember, even though He's gone through his things. He's part of that. He's been part of that. And he's supporting his wife. And good for him. You should. If you're married, have your life. Support your wife. Understand there could be consequences to that. Remember who you're marrying. And that's okay. You should love who you're marrying. But remember, not everybody loves who you're marrying. Right? You get into a marriage, doesn't mean the whole family loves what you love. You gotta love what you love. It's unfortunate, but if it's real love, it shouldn't matter. That's the truth. That's what we got to live by. Okay, we got to stop all these borders between people. But when she was going through these things and she was not getting the support, I think it was really bad when she decided to give it a break and they couldn't understand. So they ended up, reducing their role as royals and they moved to Canada first to get away for a little bit. Okay, and they were cool in Canada because they had that protection. Okay, the royals were still protecting them there. But then when they found out, hey, look, we want to go about and live our lives, then the royals said, hey, wait, that's not part of the royal agreement. You're in a firm. This is a monarchy. This is a firm. This is a business. That's not part of it. Why, if you want to be a commoner, you're going to have to act like a commoner, and commoners don't get covered. But see, there's so many people out there listening, watching the interview going, oh my God, how dare you? How dare you? See, they don't understand where the royals are coming from. And for you to watch it, you got to understand both sides. See, Meghan's talking about, oh, well, I'm royal and I'm protected and I should be protected because it's royalty. And it's me and Harry should be protected. Like, she even said in the interview, like, if you're not going to protect me and my son, you should at least protect Harry. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. If you're royal, then you're royal. You should be protected. Just like millions of people are thinking, that's terrible. He's a royal. Why aren't you protecting him? But then they're saying, look, if the royals have this commitment, okay, an obligation, and they keep it that way, and they go around, they do their business, and they represent, that is almost like a job and a commitment, okay? And the thing about it is, if you look at it from their side, you got to say, look, this is what we do here. And this is what we do. We protect ourselves. If you want to be a commoner, we got to treat you like a commoner. Why are you going to be protected if you're going out there doing commoner things? We are representing. So, like, let's say you go out there and you start getting involved in them drugs and all that. Like, royals are people too, but imagine if, you've seen some of the things in their family where, their family members went out there with the Jeffrey Epstein. What's that dude? Up there messing with them girls. He shamed the family. Okay, they ain't talking about it. They're not even barely discussing it. They figure if you're gonna do certain things in your private life, you're gonna be held accountable, or we're gonna protect you if you're gonna stay within. And that's what they do. But if Meghan and Harry are talking about separating and being commoners, you got to ask yourself, is that something that they should be doing? Should they still be protecting them? And a lot of people who are commoners are going, you're damn right, they should protect them. That's what they should do because they are still family. It's in their blood. But the truth is they don't want the commitment and the sacrifice and the obligation that a lot of the royals have to subscribe to. See, when the queen speaks, she speaks because she's the queen. When they go around the world, they have this history to them. See, there is a commitment that maybe Meghan wasn't ready for. Maybe she didn't understand. Maybe she didn't even pay attention. Maybe they didn't tell her what it was going to be like. Maybe she never really wanted that. Maybe Meghan's doing what she wants to do. So you can't really be disappointed on the protection thing. Okay, you can't. But you could have an argument to say you should still be protecting them because they're royal. But then the other argument is, wait, they don't want to be royals anymore. They want to be commoners. And the truth is, if you ask Meghan and Harry, they'll say, we don't want to be commoners. We want to be royals. We want to be royals. We want all the perks, but we don't want to be held down. We don't want to be told where we can or cannot go or do what we want to do, right? So if we want to mess up or we want to get out there and do what we want to do, want to make our own, then make your own. That's what commoners are. Those are the ones that make their own bread. Go to work. Do what you can't be having it both ways. And see, Lady Di, Harry's mother, had to go through the same thing and figure it out. She was a commoner, She struggled for whatever reason. That maybe it is a sacrifice, maybe it is a sacred life. It is different. It can't be the same. And can you expect? See, some people want it all, and you can't have it all. And I think that's what the Royals are saying is, look, this is how we operate. Okay? And because you married in, that's great. You got to stay in. You want some mental health shit? We'll pull it. But this is the obligation. But I think this went a little bit further. I think it got to the I can't stand it point. And you got to admit there are differences. There are discrete differences between Lady Di and even Meghan. And I'm making this correlation because I have to. But I'm going to say, yes, race does matter apparently. So what I'm saying is yes. So I believe, yes, it got too hard and heavy for her and Harry. And I think they needed to separate them. Maybe that's what they have to do. Maybe you have to move on, right? Maybe you have to say what it is, you know? But then there's going to be, see, we're going to talk about the third part too, right? But when she said that, that was sad because she moved to Canada. And then when she found out, like, they're writing letters and she was asking for their support, and they're like, nope, this is the way it is, right? This is the way it is. This is a royal family. It's a firm. Okay, we represent this. We have these certain standards. If you don't want to be part of it, whether it makes you crazy or not, we're not going to support you in that. If you're going to go and be independent, then you're going to be independent. Okay, because if we're going to cover you, we cover you 100%. That means we tell you what to do all the time. You represent. Your job isn't making cars. Your job isn't designing clothes. Your job is to represent the monarchy. Do good work, goodwill out there. That's what we do. We've been doing it for hundreds of years. If you don't want to do that anymore, you're going to have to go and do you. And Harry too. And see, that's what they're saying. So that's the side a lot of people don't really understand. And there's some ignorance in it. Yes, there is. But that's what they're saying. Now, on Harry and Meghan's side, it is terrible the way it went down. And I'm not going to impart my judgment on what should really happen. But I do know this. I do know that she talked about, and this is another thing too, though. This is where I have to cross the line. Now, wait. When you say you're not going to be royals anymore, see, and this is why the royals are like, wait, if you're going to go out and be a commoner and do what you got to do, you're not going to qualify to be in the royal family. There's going to be no titles. And I don't think that's right, though. See, I'm really against that. I'm really against that. That's a part, because that's blood. Like, that boy don't have, or that girl that they're going to have doesn't have any say. But that's bloodline. And see, that's what people forget when it comes to the bloodline. See, people are lacking that respect. And even the royal family, as advanced as you might think they are, they're not that advanced because clearly they're forgetting even though. So you're not even really sticking to your own standards. You're changing it. And you're changing it not out of the goodness of your heart and your understanding for commoners or royalty. You're changing it out of hate. And that's sad. And that's why I say when it comes to those kids shouldn't be punished. You should be protected if they have babies. You should be protecting your own. Harry has put in. See, this is the thing. Just because Meghan comes along and you want to go, we're not protecting her. That's personal. What about Harry's commitment that he put in for all these years? How old is he? Almost 30? He's put all these years of commitment in to the royal family, and that counts for nothing? Shame. And that's why I just disagree with that. Because you're not even acknowledging that he had committed his life to do it, and that means nothing. So that means it's personal. It has nothing to do with royal or commoner or rights. It has everything to do with the personal. I don't like you, and you know what? I'm going to punish you for it. And I'm going to pull security knowing damn well all the things, all the good things the royals have done around the world, they still know that there's enemies that they've had, and they still know that there's people out there wanting to get at the royal family, and there's ignorant people out there that'll snatch up, or it's just disgusting all the things that could go down. And you ain't gonna protect that boy? That's wrong. So right there, I'd be that's a problem. And I think society should be saying, if you're gonna be a monarchy, act like it. You don't get to oppress, especially when he's committed, he's blood, and she's blood too. Now, and she has babies, and you're telling them they're not going to be protected? No, that's disgusting, not acceptable. Okay? Now, Also, when I heard about this, and this is the really weird thing. Now, I don't know about the relationship that Meghan has with her father or not, but see, after the interview, he has the nerve to go on television and say, "Oh, I think North America's racist, and I think these states in here, like California, LA, they're racist, but the British, they're not racist." See, this is what I'm talking about. Shame on you. You should not be saying that. Your daughter is talking about what's going on with her, and you're sitting up there, right, just making your statements, not even supporting your daughter. And you say, "Oh, I know." Listen, there's racism all over this world. Race does not have a place. It goes where it is. Wherever you find it, that's where it is. Don't try to label it. And I think that's what he tried to do, and it was so sad. And see, this is another thing. You're the father, and you can't even support your daughter with what she's going through. No. And that's not acceptable. Where's the backbone of these men anyway? It's so terrible that she had to go through that. Now, obviously, once you were told by the royal family that you're not going to be protected anymore, and this is another thing, and you're telling that the kids are not going to have their titles, that's despicable. No, not acceptable. And see, I don't understand where Charles is in this whole thing. I think Charles, Harry's father, should not be cutting his son off. And that made me question something too when Harry said, "I feel sorry for my brother and my father." That made me think. See, when he said his dad doesn't take his calls anymore, now I can understand that dad has to live a certain type of way, and he has been living a certain type of way, but he's been a rebel in his own mind too. Charles has had his issues, and that's why his son is saying, like, he should know. He's gone through his, and they accepted him. Why isn't my dad accepting me? Why has he cut me off? Ain't nobody cut him off. And that's because he's still playing the role. See, Charles is still playing the role that the monarchy expects him to play, or the firm expects him to play. So he's still playing his role. Now, that being said, Harry's not playing that role. And maybe after this interview, we're starting to realize that, as much as we could feel sorry for Harry and Meghan, as much as we gawk at the fact that the royal family is saying that you're going to lose your title, you're going to lose your protection, they do seem to find their way. They moved to the United States. They moved in with Tyler Perry, right? Got some protection. You know what I mean? Make millions. So it's not that we should be feeling sorry. If you're going to be a commoner, be a commoner. Okay? But I don't think the children should have to pay the price. I don't think you should take titles. That's what's terrible. I think what you should do is you should understand that Harry has had a life of playing the role. And that should mean something. You should not be able to take his protection, you know what I mean, and the titles from his children when he's been playing that role his whole life. Somebody has to understand what they're going through. And I can't understand why somebody in the palace does not get that. They are very strict in their ways. They have a monarchy and they got to represent. But you still should be protecting yours. And I think that maybe they're doing it for punishment, but maybe they're doing it love. Maybe we have become a soft society when it comes to laying down the rules, right? They say, "Hey, you want to be with us? This is what it is." When she's like, "Oh, emotionally, I'm torn up," this is what it is, Meghan. You're not going to be the first. We've had generations, not generations, hundreds of years of the monarchy having children and having to stay in place, having to deal with this turmoil, whether it's black or white. You got to do what you're told to do and follow the routine and regulation. That's what it is, Meghan, whether you're black or white or whatever. That's what they're going to say because that's what it is. They ain't had no blacks in their family before, but that's not the point. They don't let royals go astray and do their own thing. If they do, there's consequence, or they protect them as long as they play the role. But like I said, if they don't play the role, they're on a roll. They're getting rid of them. So I think with Harry and Meghan, they have to make that decision to move on. Okay, it is a shame, but they got connects, they got money, they're making their way, and I'm sure Meghan's just saying her piece. But see, there are going to be some people out there that say, Well, Meghan, wait a minute. You made your way. You've been a strong woman. You did your thing. Why did you feel it necessary to have this interview? And I think that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to get into more depth, okay, on why she may have felt it was necessary to have this interview to out the royal. Because if you moved on, you got money, you got influence, you got connects, all right? You did some good work. Why are you exposing the royal family? Is it something that we should be knowing about? All right? Because it really does ask a lot of questions about the situation. And I know it ain't right, but I'm wondering in time, is the royal family going to turn around and say, boom, we made a mistake. This practice that we've been having for hundreds of years, we're not going to do it anymore. We're actually going to change things. Because I think this is quite new to them. But in the sense where they're saying we're taking away the titles and the protection, that could be something new that may change, but it may not. Because in order for you to be royal, you can't be a commoner. And so I think that's what the rule is. And this is steeped in tradition, people. Man, the counselor is bringing it to you, and I love talking about this topic. And I want you to be like the wise old bird and spread the word. We got lots to talk about because I'm a little curious. And we got this one question that keeps, because when Meghan was asked this question about who was making the dark skin comments, everybody's fighting about who said it. Nobody really knows. And I have my assumptions, which are not verified on who said what. Okay? But the point is, it would be interesting to know who said it if it'll ever come out. But we have a hot topic here. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot of people talking. And they're going to be talking for a while because they're not done with this story yet. I'm telling you right now, be like the wise old bird and spread the word. And remember, people, I want you to go to the clsr.myshopify.com, okay, and get yourself some gear because the counselor is here. I said the clsr.myshopify.com. I got that store on bling. I want you to get yourself some gear. Let them know you're here. And until we speak again, because we got to do part 3. We have to talk about this because there's too many unanswered questions. Okay? But you're starting to get it. It's not a one-sided story. It's not as simple as black and white. There's some gray in there. Okay? You got to understand we're talking about a history. All right? And think about you as an individual. How easy do you adapt to change? And what would you do if you were in the royal family? Okay? All right, think about that. And I also need you to think, well, wait a minute. If it's just about race, why was Lady Diana going through her changes? Maybe the commoners couldn't take what the royals were dishing out. Uh-huh. So let's think about that, people. All right, take care of yourself.